Hi, this is James, taking a break from everything else to talk about Alucard from Castlevania 3. Alucard is not a powerful man. He will not attack on staircases, and his projectile attacks by themselves are fairly weak. Perhaps they're best described as very polite. However, like all nobles, he can turn into a bat. As well, his projectile attacks, while kind and considerate, fire up and down in 45-degree angles when you power them up. We're going to look at how these skills can be made useful. He's really useful on these horizontal moving platforms. The game likes to throw bats at you at random times, and if you find yourself unable to avoid them, you can jump up, turn into a bat, and find your way to solid ground. Even if you find yourself taking damage, you can still turn into a bat mid-fall. Staying in bat form costs 1 heart per second, so you want to be fast about it. If you find yourself jumping straight up to avoid a bat, you can turn into a bat and then back into Alucard form, and that extra hang time can keep you alive. He's also really useful when the level design tries to force Trevor into an enemy at the top of a staircase. Now the entire problem has been solved with no damage taken, even though Trevor is still stuck with the dagger subweapon. That dagger subweapon is the best way of trolling a player using a power-up that I've ever seen. Bat form is also good for scaling vertical levels where you control the pace of the level scroll. Note here that even though Alucard cannot attack from the stairs, he can turn into a bat while standing on a staircase. Something else important just happened there, so we're going to look at that clip again. Observe that Alucard gets knocked out of bat form when he takes damage. True to form on the NES Castlevania games, Alucard hits terminal velocity the second that gravity has him in its pull, excluding falls from jumps. If you act fast enough, you can turn back into bat form before falling off the level. I'd like to indicate something technical here that you've been noticing the whole time, though maybe not explicitly, but that is really important to Castlevania strategy on the NES. No matter how weak Alucard's attacks are, they, like any other attack, will make the enemy pause. Looking at the game technically, the counterbalance to that pause is that your character has a cooldown period after each attack during which you can't move. And I think that the enemy's pause period is slightly shorter than your cooldown. This technical aspect of the NES Castlevania games has resulted in many a close quarter whip frenzy. Jumping while attacking can give you greater control over that cooldown effect. The cooldown period starts as soon as you attack. If that starts while you're in midair, and if you're jumping in your desired direction, you're less immobilized by the cooldown period. This does force you to think ahead though. In the NES Castlevanias, every jump is a commitment. But that's a Belmont problem. If you're in that close quarter situation with Alucard, something's gone wrong. I've replayed that specific encounter between Alucard and the Axe Knight for 2 reasons. 1, I want to draw specific attention to the amount of time that an enemy is stunned in a concentrated setting. 2, I don't want to record new footage. Oh yeah, bat form is also good for that. We're going to use the boss fight against Death to show all of Alucard's abilities working in unison. Big important thing that we have not covered yet. Alucard has no sub-weapons. Therefore, every location that contains a power-up, a sub-weapon, anything other than an extra life, will contain a heart. NES Castlevania level designs really like to put you on a bridge that's unstable in one way or another, and then tease you with an abundance of candles while throwing other crap at you. Besides the obvious possibility of death, this is risky as a Belmont because, unless you know what's in those candles, you're likely to get stuck with a troll dagger and lose your awesome triple fire boomerang cross. Alucard's lack of sub-weapons actually safeguards against this once you've got Trevor set up. You want an abundance of hearts here mainly for Trevor's sake. Sub-weapons are the best way to hit Death as Trevor, so you want to make sure you're well stocked. Now that we've seen how many hearts we can accrue as Alucard on that bridge, let's hit the candles using Trevor. Since both Alucard and Trevor need to level up their weapons, It's important to use these first safe candles towards that end. Death in Castlevania 3 has 2 phases. We're going to show Alucard's strengths during Death's second phase, so our focus is to get Alucard's primary weapon fully powered up, and then get Trevor set up the way we'd like. There we go. Choosing the best sub-weapon for Trevor, then, depends upon how you plan to handle that first phase. Playing as Trevor, I often find myself knocked onto the ground and cornered. The best weapon to fight with in that situation is something anti-aerial, so I prefer the axe. If it's timed right, we can actually jump over this guy. Just not today. So now we're ready to take on the first phase as Trevor. The focus of the video is Alucard, so we're not going to spend too much time on Trevor. But there are some basics to cover in this fight. The level design gives you 3 tiers of platforms. I prefer to use the second tier for offense, the third tier for retreat, and the floor tier for evasion or recovery from damage. Death has frequent access to the center of the level, so I tend to escape to the sides. The axe is good if you find yourself trapped, or if you want to keep pressure on Death as you hop back up on that second tier. And now for the man of the hour. In my experience, Trevor moves kind of clunkily during this fight, so Alucard has several advantages here. First, his mobility in bat form. Second, his attack can hit Death whether Death is above or below Alucard's level. Third, and most importantly for the sake of getting out of Death's way, Death will pause from 1 stun per projectile that Alucard lands, and the staggered nature of Alucard's attack often means that Death is slowed down by up to 3 stuns in sequence. That makes Alucard more mobile, and gives him more openings to attack. So, there's a video of somebody talking about Alucard from Castlevania 3. Thank you for watching.